Mom excluded me from Mother's Day for my job. So I quietly changed everything. I never thought Mother's Day would be the day I realized I no longer belonged in my own family. A week before Mother's Day, our family group chat was buzzing. My siblings were planning a brunch, gifts, decorations, everything Mom loved. I smiled while reading the messages, waiting for someone to tag me or ask if I was coming. They never did. Finally, I messaged my sister privately and asked, "What time is Mother's Day brunch?" Her reply came after a long pause. "Oh, Mom said it might be better if you don't come. She feels your job doesn't reflect well on the family." I stared at my phone, numb. My job, the same job that paid my bills, the same job that helped my parents when money was tight, the same job I worked long nights for just to survive. Apparently, it wasn't respectable enough. I didn't argue. I didn't cry in the chat. I didn't beg to be included. I just replied, "Okay, tell Mom I said Happy Mother's Day." On Mother's Day, while they were posting smiling pictures, I sat alone in my small apartment. I felt hurt, yes, but something else too. Clarity. I realized I had spent years trying to earn love that was conditional. So I quietly changed everything. I stopped sending money every month. I stopped being available at every family emergency. I stopped explaining my life choices. Instead, I invested in myself. I took extra shifts. I saved aggressively. I studied, upgraded my skills, and built connections. Silently. No announcements. No validation needed. 2 years later, I bought my own house. The same family who once felt ashamed of my job now wanted to visit. My mother called, her voice suddenly soft, asking when she could come see my place. I invited them all for a housewarming. When my mom walked in, she looked around in disbelief. "This is beautiful," she said. I smiled politely. During dinner, she finally said, "I'm proud of you." I looked at her and replied calmly, "I wish you'd been proud when I needed it most." The room went silent. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't seeking revenge. I had already won by choosing myself the day they didn't choose me. And that was the quietest, strongest comeback of my life. After that night, my family stayed unusually quiet. No more judgmental comments, no subtle insults about my choices, just forced smiles and careful words. But I could feel it. Something had shifted. A week later, my mom called me. Not to ask for help, not to complain, just to talk. She said, "I didn't realize how much we hurt you." I didn't answer right away, because the truth was, I had rehearsed this moment in my head 1,000 times. But now that it was here, I didn't need to say much anymore. I didn't need approval, I finally said. I just needed respect. She went silent. Then she admitted something I never expected. She had been afraid of what relatives would say, afraid of gossip, afraid of being judged as a mother. So she chose appearances over her own child. Hearing it didn't reopen the wound. It closed it. For the first time, I understood it was never about my job. It was about their fear. I told her calmly, "I forgive you, but things can't go back to how they were." Boundaries replaced expectations. Distance replaced disappointment. Months passed. My siblings started calling more often, not because they needed something, but because they were curious. They saw my independence, my peace, my confidence. One day, my sister said quietly, "You know, I wish I had your courage." I smiled. Because courage wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was waking up every day and choosing not to shrink for anyone. Mother's Day came again the next year. This time I didn't wait for an invitation. I sent my mom flowers with a simple note. "Happy Mother's Day. I hope today is peaceful." No bitterness, no guilt, just closure. And for the first time, I celebrated myself too. Because sometimes the real Mother's Day gift is becoming the person who learns how to nurture their own soul life. Stayed peaceful for a while. I focused on my work, my home, my routines. I stopped checking my phone every time it buzzed, hoping for validation that no longer mattered. Then one evening, my brother called. His voice was tense. "Mom is in the hospital." I paused, not because I didn't care, but because this was the moment I had prepared for without realizing it. I went to the hospital quietly. No announcements, no family drama. When my mom saw me, her eyes filled with tears. She reached for my hand like she used to when I was a child. "I didn't think you'd come," she whispered. I squeezed her hand and said gently, "I came because I wanted to, not because I felt obligated." That difference mattered. Outside the room, my relatives were there too, the same ones who used to whisper about my job this time. They were polite, almost careful. One on said, "You've done well for yourself." I smiled and replied, "I always was doing well. You just couldn't see it." No anger, just truth. That night, sitting alone in the hospital corridor, I realized something important. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. Love does not mean self-sacrifice. And family does not get unlimited access to you just because you share blood. My mom recovered slowly. Before I left the hospital for the last time, she said, "I spent so much time worrying about what people would think. I forgot to protect my own child." I nodded. I know. This time she didn't ask for forgiveness. She understood it had to be earned. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I had never felt before with my family. Not approval, not pride balance. I walked back to my car knowing one thing for sure. No matter what happened next, I would never make myself small again just to be included. After my mom came home from the hospital, things changed, but not the way people expect in stories like this. There were no dramatic apologies, no sudden perfect family dinners, no miracle transformation. Instead, there was effort. My mom started calling just to ask how my day was. Not what I was doing, not how much I was earning, just how I felt. One afternoon, she said something that stayed with me. "I spent years teaching you to be strong, then got uncomfortable when you actually were." That was the moment I knew she finally understood. A few months later, Mother's Day came again. This time, my siblings asked me what the plan was. I didn't host a big brunch. I didn't invite extended relatives. I didn't try to prove anything. I invited only my mom. We had tea on my porch. No cameras, no posts, no audience. She looked at me and said quietly, "I'm sorry. I made you feel like love had to be earned." I replied, calmly and honestly, "I don't need you to make up for the past. I just need us to be real now." She nodded, and for the first time, she didn't defend herself. That was enough. I learned something through all of this. Being excluded didn't break me. It introduced me to myself. I learned how to stand without applause, how to grow without permission, how to love without disappearing. And the truth is, the best revenge was never success. It was peace. It was boundaries. It was choosing myself the day they didn't. And I've never looked back since. Time moved on. Not dramatically, not perfectly, just honestly. My relationship with my family became quieter, less performative, more real. We didn't talk every day. We didn't pretend nothing happened. And strangely, that made everything healthier. One evening, my mom visited me alone again. She noticed a photo frame on my shelf. It was a picture of me standing in front of my house on the day I got the keys. She asked softly, "Why is this your favorite picture?" I answered without thinking, "Because no one else was there telling me who I should be." She nodded slowly. Then she said something I didn't know I needed to hear. "I judged your job because I didn't understand your strength. Didn't respond right away." Because healing doesn't always need words. Sometimes it just needs to be witnessed. Before leaving, she hugged me, not tightly, not desperately, just respectfully. After she left, I stood in the doorway for a long time. I realized something important. Some parents never learn. Some dolate, and some only learn when you stop begging them to see you.
I didn't rebuild my life to prove them wrong.
I rebuilt it so I would never abandon myself again, and if anyone ever asks me what happened that Mother's Day, I simply say that was the day I became my own family. 5 years passed. Life didn't slow down, but it softened. I built a routine I loved, work that paid well, a home that felt safe, mornings without anxiety, and nights without explaining myself to anyone. My family and I stayed in touch, but on my terms. Then one day, my mom told me something unexpected. She said a relative had asked her, "Which child is the most successful?" My heart skipped a beat when she said, "I told them all my children are successful, but one of them taught me what strength really looks like." I didn't ask which one. I already knew. She continued, "I used to think respect came from titles and jobs. Now I know it comes from character." That was the moment I realized something important. I didn't change my family by arguing. I changed them by walking my own path without asking permission. Later that year, my mom insisted on hosting a small Mother's Day dinner. Just immediate family. No gossip, no judgment. As we sat at the table, she raised her glass and said, "I once excluded someone because I was afraid of society. Today I honor them because they were braver than me." Everyone looked at me. I didn't feel proud. I felt peaceful. After dinner, my sister hugged me and whispered, "You broke the cycle." And that was it. No grand speeches. No dramatic endings. Just a quiet truth settling into place. The child they once felt embarrassed by became the standard they now measured strength by, and the life I built in silence spoke louder than any explanation ever could. As time went on, people started coming to me for advice. Friends, cousins, even strangers who knew my story. They'd ask, "How did you survive being pushed aside by your own family?" I always paused before answering, because the truth wasn't dramatic. I stopped trying to be understood by people who were committed to misunderstanding me. That answer usually made them quiet. One evening, while cleaning my house, I found an old Mother's Day card I had bought years ago. The one I never got to give. It was simple. Just 3 words inside. "Thank you for everything." I smiled. Not because the pain was gone, but because it no longer controlled me. I realized something powerful. That Mother's Day didn't ruin me. It redirected me. It taught me how to love without approval, how to show up without shrinking, how to leave rooms where my worth was questioned. And strangely, that lesson didn't just change my life. It changed my mother too. She became gentler, less concerned with opinions, more present. One day she said, "I tell other parents, now don't push your child away just to impress the world." I never asked her to say that. She learned it on her own, and that's how I knew the story was complete. Not because everything was perfect, not because everyone apologized, but because the cycle stopped with me. And sometimes, that's the most powerful ending of all. It happened at a family gathering. I almost didn't attend. A distant cousin laughed and said, "Remember when everyone thought your job was embarrassing?" The room went quiet. Before I could respond, my mom spoke, firmly, clearly. "Now that job raised this family when we needed help. And the person who did it with dignity is sitting right there." She looked at me. No hesitation. And no fear of judgment. No concern for gossip. For a moment I didn't recognize her. The same woman who once excluded me to protect her image was now protecting me publicly. The cousin awkwardly laughed it off. The conversation moved on, but something inside me shifted. Later, I thanked my mom. She shook her head and said, "No, I should have done that years ago." I realized then, healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up as someone finally using their voice the way they should have all along. That night, driving home, I didn't feel like I had won anything. I felt free. I found it by accident. A folded letter tucked inside one of my mom's old books. No envelope, no date. Just my name written at the top. "I don't know if I'll ever give this to you," it began. She wrote about Mother's Day, about how fear had made her cruel, about choosing society's approval over her own child. "I told myself I was protecting the family," she wrote. "But the truth is, I was protecting my pride." My hands trembled as I read. She admitted she saw my strength long before she acknowledged it, that my job embarrassed her not because it lacked value, but because it reminded her of sacrifices she never had the courage to make. "I watched you grow quietly," the letter said.
"And every step you took without us made me realize how much we failed you."
At the end, just one line. "If you never forgive me, I will understand. I just needed you to know. I see you now." I folded the letter back and put it where I found it. I didn't confront her. I didn't bring it up. Because some apologies aren't meant to be spoken. They're meant to be lived. And she had been living it, slowly, consistently, sincerely. That night, I understood something gentle and true. Closure doesn't always come from answers. Sometimes it comes from evidence. And I had enough. A few years later, my niece asked me a question I didn't expect. "Why do you always look calm when everyone else is trying to prove something?" I smiled. "Because how do you explain a lifetime lesson to a child?" I told her, "When you know who you are, you don't need permission." She nodded like she understood more than her age should allow. Later that evening, I overheard my mom talking to her. She said, "Never judge someone by their job. Judge them by how they treat themselves when no one is watching." I froze. Those words once would have saved me years of pain. Now they were being passed forward. That's when it hit me. My story didn't end with healing. It continued as protection. The cycle didn't just stop. It reversed. The same family that once excluded me was now teaching my lesson to the next generation. Free from old anger. Free from waiting for validation. Free from rewriting the past. Because the truth was, even if that moment had never happened, I would have been okay. I had already built a life where respect was standard, not requested. And when your self-worth no longer depends on who includes you, exclusion loses all its power. That's when you know the story is truly turned in your favor. And I didn't need credit. I didn't need acknowledgement. Because the greatest victory wasn't being included again. It was knowing no child in my family would ever be made to feel small for surviving. The Mother's Day came again, years later. This time, I didn't wait for an invitation. I didn't seek approval. I simply lived my life fully. surrounded by the people I chose and the boundaries I set. My mom called that morning, softly. "I'm proud of you," she said. Not because I begged for it, not because I conformed, but because I had earned it in the only way that mattered, by staying true to myself. I smiled. "Thank you," I replied quietly. But inside, I knew the truth. The real victory wasn't her words. It was every step I had taken when they excluded me. Every night I stayed strong. Every choice I made without asking permission. Every moment I learned to value myself. That day I realized exclusion doesn't define you. Silence doesn't weaken you. And love, when it comes late, is sweeter when it's earned, not demanded. I looked around my home, my sanctuary built with my own hands and my own strength, and I whispered to myself, I am enough. I have always been enough. Outro for you to be voiceover style. Sometimes the people who should lift you up don't. Sometimes they leave you out. But life has a way of giving you back what truly matters, the chance to rise quietly, to build your own world, and to show up for yourself first. This is the story of being excluded and quietly triumphing anyway. Because the strongest victories are not loud. They're lived. Like and subscribe.